Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So as you know, last night's video was a mess. I really apologize. So this is the same lesson, it's just take two. We're going to try again. So our goal is that we were going to divide using the area model. In our vocab, we had just 3 words that we were going to talk about. So we need to know that the answer to any division problem is called our quotient. The number that we're dividing is called our dividend. Dividend. So that's the 10, and it's also the 10 when it's set up this way. So the dividend is what we're dividing, and the number we're dividing it by is called our divisor. It's spelled with an O, divisor. So those are just 3 vocab words that we're going to be using for the next few weeks in division. Okay, in notes we had just a few review things that we really need to know how to multiply the shortcut with our zeros now. So we underline non-zeros. 4 times 5 is 20, and I add my extra zeros. So 1, 2, 3. Underline my non-zeros. I get 60 and add my extra zeros. Underline my non-zeros, and you saw in the other video I did the algorithm for this because I don't know that as a basic fact. So 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1, so I get 78. And I add my extra zeros. We're not going to talk about in and out yet. Okay, our steps, remember, were really long in this video, and there was a lot of them. But what I'd said is you're just going to want to use them and keep referring back to them. So it's okay, you don't have to memorize these. So we're first going to draw a tall rectangle. So in 4th grade, you do a long rectangle. Now it's a tall one. We're going to write the divisor on top. We're going to estimate what number can work without going over. So when we do this, we're going to be underlining the dividend. And we're going to add zeros. This is probably the tricky step. The zeros are going to be any numbers that are left in the dividend. Then we're going to write the partial quotient on the side. We're going to multiply and write the answer inside. Then we're going to subtract the answer from the dividend. And then we're going to repeat steps 3 through 6 until nothing is left. And then finally we're going to add the partial quotients. Okay, so you should already have these notes from the previous video because this part of the lesson was done correctly. What wasn't done correctly is I messed up on my guided practice. So I had modeled these for you. I'm not going to make you rewatch those, but we are going to redo the guided practice together. Okay, so you can have your steps and keep referring back to them. First, I'm going to write my tall rectangle. So here's my tall rectangle. Okay, next, I'm going to write the divisor on top, and my divisor is the number I'm dividing it by. So here it's the 2, so in this problem it's going to be the 4. Okay, next I'm going to estimate what number can work without going over from the dividend. And I'm going to be underlining and adding zeros. So my dividend is 2,248. So I'm going to ask myself, can 4 fit into 2? Nope. Can 4 fit into 22? Yes, 4 can fit into 22 5 times. But because there's these 2 extra zeros, it's actually going to be 500. Okay, so I just did step 4. I wrote the partial quotient on the side. Now I'm going to do step 5, multiply and write the answer inside. So 4 times 5 is 20 and add 2 extra zeros. Now I'm going to do step 6, subtract the answer from the dividend. So this answer is going to be subtracted from the dividend. and I get 8 and 4 and 2. And then 2 take away 2 is 0. Okay, so my next step says repeat steps 3 through 6 until there's nothing left. So let's go back to 3. We're back to our estimating in the dividend by underlining. So how many times can 4 fit into 2? Well, it can't. What about 24? Can 4 fit into 24? Yes, 4 can fit into 24 6 times. So, but because there's this extra spot, it's actually going to be 60 times. So I wrote my partial quotient on the side like step 4 says. Step 5 says multiply and write the answer inside. So I'm going to get 4 times 6 is 24 and add 1 0. And then I'm going to subtract that from my dividend. So 8 take away 0 is 8. 4 take away that, all I'm left with is 8. So I just did step 6, which says subtract the answer from the dividend. Now I'm going to repeat steps 3 through 6 until there's nothing left. So I'm going to go back to 3, which is where I'm doing my estimating. So can 4 fit into 8? Yep, 4 can fit into 8 2 times. And because there's nothing left over here, it's just going to be a straight 2 times. Okay, so I already wrote the partial quotient on the side. Now I'm going to multiply the answer. 4 times 2 is 8. And now I'm going to subtract the answer from the dividend. So 8 subtracted. And now there's nothing left. So I'm not going to be repeating. Now I'm going to go to step 8 where it says add my partial quotients. So my partial quotients are 500, 60, and 2. So 500 plus 60 plus 2 gives me 562. Okay, let's try one more of those. Okay, so looking at my steps, I first start with drawing that tall rectangle. So here's my tall rectangle. Okay, now I'm going to write my divisor on top. So my divisor for this one is also 4. Right here, my divisor is 4. And then step 3 is I'm going to estimate what number can work without going over by underlining my dividend, which means I first need to write my dividend. So my dividend is 5,880. Okay. Now, when I go to estimate, can 4 fit into 5? Yes, 4 can fit into 5 one time. But because I have 1, 2, 3 empty spaces, it's really going to be 1 with 3 zeros, which is 1,000. So I just did step 4. I first did step 3 and figured out it's 1,000. Then I wrote it on the side. Now I'm going to multiply and write the answer inside. So 4 times 1,000 is 4,000. And I'm going to come over here and subtract. So I'm getting 0, 8, 8, 1. So I just subtracted the answer from the dividend. And now I'm going to go repeat steps 3 through 6 until there's nothing left. So back to step 3 says I'm going to estimate what number works by underlining the dividend and adding zeros. So can 4 fit into 1? Nope. Could 4 fit into 18? Yes, 4 can fit into 18 4 times because 4 times 4 is 16. So it's 4 can fit into 18 4 times, but because there's 2 numbers after, it's really going to be 400. Okay, so I already wrote it on the side. Now I'm going to multiply and write the answer inside. So 4 times 4 is 16, plus 2 zeros gives me 1,600. And then I'm going to come down here and subtract it. So I get 280. Okay, so I just subtracted the answer from the dividend and I'm back to repeat steps 3 through 6. So Can 4 fit into 2? No. Can 4 fit into 28? Yes. 4 can fit into 28 7 times, but because there's a number after it, it's really going to be 70 times. Okay, so I already did step 4, wrote it on the side. Now step 5, I'm going to multiply and write the answer inside. So 4 times 7 is 28, plus 1 0 is 280. Okay, so now that I wrote it inside, I'm at step 6 and it says to subtract it. So I come over here and subtract it from my dividend and I end up with 0. So my next step says repeat steps 3 through 6 until nothing's left. Nothing was left. So now I'm going to do step 8, which means add my partial quotients. So add 1,470 together. So I have 1,470 gives me 1,470. So that is my answer. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this lesson was a little bit more clear and mistake-free as opposed to last night's lesson. Again, I apologize for that and I appreciate your grace in my mistakes. All right, have a good day. Bye.